tell you what, it is hard not being green or woke in this country. So hard, in fact, that one of my favourite New Zealanders, former New Zealander of the Year and Knight of the Realm, packed up and left recently, and he joined us on the show. It was an interview that was widely listened to, and I had a couple of people ring in over the last few days saying, how is Ray Avery doing? And I thought, well, we better ring him and we better check in and see how he is doing. So, by video link now from Australia, we are joined by Sir Ray Avery. Sir Ray, lovely to see your dial again. How are you?
I'm good, mate. I'm bloody good. I've learned to speak Australian.
Look, how long since you've been there? How long since you up sticks and moved over the ditch?
Oh, well, it's an interesting dynamic because whilst I have moved and the family's been here for nearly 2 years because they got stranded in the COVID diaspora and they couldn't get back home. So that was one of the driving forces to, get back to the family and be able to travel internationally. But I come back to New Zealand every couple of weeks. So really I'm, trans-Tasman traveller. But the family home's been here for a couple of years now.
Ray, what is different about Australia? And we actually just had recently one of our hosts, Tina Nixon, came back from a visit to Perth, and she said the feeling is just different in Australia. We're looking at figures for migration, and a lot of younger New Zealanders with qualifications looking at Australia, and it's easier now to get citizenship and residency status in Australia. And we're having a brain drain again, not at your end of the demographic, but further down. Can you understand why?
Yeah, I can, absolutely. And I think it was probably reinforced more when I arrived because we all have a perception of what Australia is like. And I think generally New Zealanders feel that Australia cares about them, but it actually doesn't. I was reading the paper this morning and the international news was fantastic, but there was no mention of New Zealand and they don't really care. But this is a thing, I think, if you read this was a thing that was going to be a preface in 1999 for the governance statement of Australia, and it's very important to read it accurately because it never got through because of one word, which was mateship. But what they actually wanted to say, which represented what Australia means, is Australians are free to be proud of their country and their heritage, free to realise themselves as individuals and be free to pursue their hopes and ideals. We value excellence as well as fairness, independence as dearly as mateship. Now imagine a constitution, mateship in it. And that really embodies the whole country's feel that everybody can be anything you want here. This tall poppy thing doesn't exist, A good example of how that plays out in the education system is my young daughter, who's very, very smart. She was at school and she was never asked to answer a question. She put her hand up many times and they didn't ask her to answer the question. So she said, why not? And they said, well, look, we know you know the answer, so we want to give the other kids a chance. In Australia, when she did the same kind of thing and corrected the teacher said, get on, you doll. And so there's this huge difference about celebrating individuality, laid back. It's just everybody talks to you on the street. It's
another question, Ray. Is it less woke in Australia?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is less woke because it's woke in a mateship way because everybody has a go at each other in a friendly way, and it becomes so profound that nobody gives a shit. Everybody just has a go at each other, you'll see a guy from a council truck who's double parked, and the cops will come over and they'll have a larrikin moment with each other, and nobody will get charged, but they have a go at each other, and in quite a flamboyant way.
When we talked first when the platform started, I got the feeling from you that you were very down. You were heavy of heart about the way New Zealand was going. Do you personally feel somewhat liberated, somewhat lighter of spirit since the move to Australia?
Oh, absolutely. And part of that is, if you've got family, my kids are thriving here, whereas they were suppressed in New Zealand. My eldest daughter now is a junior army officer. She's in the junior regiment. She goes off every weekend and goes to camp and learns survival skills. And she's going off to Europe in December with the school's symphony. And so the opportunities for here, there's so many universities, the vibrancy of the country. It's hard not to. I mean, my dress these days is a t-shirt and shorts, and it's hard to get the yakka going. And even if you go into Ernst & Young, as I did the other day, these guys are not all dressed up as they are in New Zealand. Yeah.
How do we turn it round, Ray? Because I hate the thought that we've lost you and your family. I'd love to think New Zealand could get you back.
Well, I'm coming back every couple of weeks to do my charitable stuff and so on. But I think, and I have invested 50 years in the country. Obviously, I love the country and would like it to be turned around. The difficulties we've got are twofold. One is it's a small country trying to pretend to be a big country. So when you look at the light rail in Sydney, everybody uses. I use it. It costs a few bob just to get into town, but you really can't support that kind of infrastructure with a small population. I mean, in Sydney alone, you've got 4 times the population that you have in Auckland, almost the population of the whole of New Zealand, and so that enables you to build infrastructure. And there's so much back-end work to be done in New Zealand. And then there's social problems, of course, with having not such a multicultural society at its heart. That makes it much more difficult to solve. So there's a lot of problems to be solved, and of course that plays out in our terrible domestic violence things and teen suicide rates,
Ray, obviously you're still, as you said, back every couple of weeks to do your charitable work. Do you sense in the last 6-7 months a change in New Zealand in the atmosphere, a desire perhaps for change, or to change our government, change our attitude?
Well, I think that's true, and it's true for twofold reasons. One is there was all the suppression around COVID, and it really increased a woke society, and I think people are coming out of that. And of course there's been the floods and all of those things, but I think people are looking for change and looking for a new New Zealand that everybody can be proud of. There's so much talent in New Zealand. It just needs to be much more connected with the rest of the world, and hopefully I'm trying to do that through some of the things I'm doing with Australia and New Zealand, with some of the charitable work I'm doing. And there's good signs in the way that some of the domestic violence groups are working in New Zealand to turn around some of the root causes of these problems. And that doesn't get any publicity, but I don't think New Zealand's completely munted.
I'm going to take that quote. I don't think New Zealand is completely munted, says Ray Avery. Look, I'm going to take that as a positive, Ray, and it's good to see you smiling. It is nice to talk to you again. And for those, as I said, I had a number of people saying, how is Ray Avery doing? Now we know. Thank you for your perspectives, and have a nice day in your flip-flops, your stubbies and your singlet, mate. Cheers. That is Sir Ray Avery, philanthropist, inventor, medical inventor, doing a lot of work in charity with domestic violence, and former New Zealander of the Year, Knight of the Realm, but now lives in Aussie. And he just got a bit sick of the New Zealand negativity. This text says, Ray is right. Lived in Australia for a couple of years, returned to New Zealand because of COVID. Love Australia. Better pay, better weather, less woke, advance Australia fair. Sean, Sir Ray Avery compares apples with apples, not kangaroos. Every country has its problems. That's true.